every day, I thank God we did.
And this was, the first one I had on the water, like 3 different.
Yeah, and we were actually looking at closing.
Well, not letting it lost.
I mean, in retrospect, it's very clear.
Oh, it is 6 o'clock.
It's just as good.
All right, guys, ladies and gentlemen. So 6 o'clock, all is well, we'll get started. The work session number A has been deleted for this evening due to employee changes, so we'll have to come back next month for that report. And that's a pretty important report because I'll let Mr. Pope explain that to you, but we was hoping to get the presentation today and get that over with, but this lady found a different job, so they gotta get somebody else up to speed.
So, yeah, the mayor's right. One of the employees, the primary employee assigned to our project at the consultant, took another position, left them kind of hanging for the night, so they weren't able to make it tonight. So we are gonna put the safety action plan up on our webpage, post it on Facebook, invite public comment on it, and we'll get it emailed to you guys for your comments, and we'll collect comments for next month. At next month's meeting, if there are any comments that need to result in a change in the plan, we'll make those comments, or changes, but we are gonna ask you guys next month to either approve it or approve it contingent upon successful completion of the amendments. And the reason is, we started this project so that we could apply for federal transportation grant money. That grant deadline is the end of June this year. So we've reached out to our consultants who did the Arctic Avenue study, and we're working on the Arctic Avenue design. They've had a meeting with COG, they got the grant application process, the grant application standards. Jenna and I met with them one day this week, I guess that was yesterday, the only other day this week. And we walked through the grant application step by step. We identified who's responsible for what areas, some tweaks that need to be made to the plan, some mandatory language, that sort of thing. And if you guys approve that plan in June, we have to have a formal resolution approving it as part of our application. If you guys approve it in June, that will allow us to apply about a week later for an unknown number of millions of dollars for Arctic Avenue. The actual scope of the application is TBD, but we have some preliminary guidance from COG. They couldn't tell us how many millions of dollars are available, but they suggested that it's better to go big or go home. So we're working on that, so I apologize to everyone that we don't have that presentation, but I don't think it would be fair for staff to present it. The consultants worked on it, they really know the ins and outs, frankly, better than we did. So we'll get up on the internet so everyone can see it out in the public, send comments, ask questions, and we'll do our best to address as many comments, concerns, and questions at the presentation next month. And incidentally, it's probably gonna create some extra time at the end of this work session today, because we are not talking about that anymore, unless you guys have further questions. All right? Are we gonna stream these, are we gonna stream the documents to any TV? Yeah, if you don't mind. So while Wes works on that, the next few items on the agenda are all about parking enforcement and paid parking. As you guys know, a few months ago, the city was served in a lawsuit contending that we don't have the right to contract out what I'm gonna refer to as parking ticket enforcement. That's enforcement of our parking violations, tires on the pavement, too close to the stop sign, to third parties. We believe we do, but in the best interest of just making things as cut and dry and as clear going forward as possible, we are proposing some amendments to our ordinances and to negotiate our parking contract. The essence of it here is that our current ordinance allows us to designate people to enforce parking. It says the city may designate. We're gonna take that a step further and designate those people to enforce parking tickets as code enforcement officers of the city. We're gonna formally designate them as code enforcement officers for the city, not employees of the city, just giving that code enforcement authority for parking, to issue parking tickets. We're gonna reinforce language in our code that says that the issuance of parking tickets is a non-discretionary act. pay parking, just parking tickets. And then we're going to, right now, our contractor has the ability to kind of pre-handle appeals before they go to city court. They can dismiss tickets, they can reduce tickets. This would change that, so they only have the right to dismiss the ticket. If someone calls and says, I'm contesting my ticket, and they look and the evidence is clear that there was no violation, they'll have the power to dismiss it. But in terms of reducing it or otherwise than settling it, if there is a question of the violation, that will be routed through our court instead of through them. They already are routed through our court, but as a second step, this is just gonna cut the parking, it's basically not allowing the parking tractor to cut it before the court does. So that's one change. And then the important thing is, well, not the important thing, an important thing, is that we're gonna completely segregate the revenue from parking tickets and the revenue from paid parking receipts. And currently, our contract is set up so they collect all the money and they pay us a flat fee every year. This would say they only collect the paid parking money. They pay us a flat fee based on that, and the parking ticket money goes completely to us. And so that, of course, is gonna mean we need to renegotiate our payment to them or from them. So after tonight, if you guys give first reading to the ordinance changes, we'll continue negotiations and bring back to you guys in June a revised contract to consider with new payment terms and just a different delineation of duties. They will still, be issuing the tickets, managing the tickets, fielding the initial phone calls, et cetera. So they're keeping a lot of the work. They're just really losing their ability to be an intermediary and a judge for dismissal. So the actual parking ticket or parking ordinance revenues start on page 3 of the work session. Sorry, parking ordinance amendments. There's a lot of red here, but I do want to say that a lot of this red is expanding what's in black there. This is not a wholesale replacement with new concepts. All these concepts are already in our ordinance, just in a much shorter form. This is a fuller version of the same language. It's mirrored on what the Isle of Palms recently adopted, which ironically their ordinance was mirrored on our ordinance. They took our ordinance, which has a basic structure and principles, expanded it into some clarifying language, so now we're following their work to expand ours. So this first section here just simply says that parking tickets have to be done on a form approved by the city. They can be issued by any one officer of the city or person who's a code enforcement officer, and the parking tickets must have this information listed there in B 1 through 6. All that information is already on our tickets. This is just codifying it to formalize those requirements. Flipping over to page 4, item C, up at the top, parking citations must be filed in municipal court and may be disposed of only by official action of the court. So this is what I was talking about earlier. Right now, our appeal process, before you get to court, you can call the parking contractor, say I'd like to appeal it. They'll review your file, and they do have the discretion right now to work with people. There is a dismiss, reduce, or nothing kind of action they can take. So this would just limit them to either dismissing, if it's clearly not a violation, if they messed up, because occasionally they do, or if they can't dismiss it outright, it will be routed through our court. If needed, we will be able then to call those parking employees back as witnesses. They do have a fairly robust documentation system, so we hope that those pictures and timestamps will make the case for them, but as needed, they will come, the city will prosecute the ticket, and they will be witnesses.
Do you think on E, it would make more sense to have 24 hours of issuing the citation instead of 12? That way, if somebody wrote a ticket at 3 in the afternoon, instead of him or her canceling the citation by 3 in the morning, they would have a full 24 hours to cancel the ticket?
I don't see a functional difference. Joe, do you?
I think that's a good idea, frankly.
Wow.
Don't let your head swell.
I was gonna say, you better hold on to it.
You're dismissed.
So, if you guys would like to make that, just a note for someone to make that amendment or a motion for that amendment later when we discuss it. Moving on down to parking contractors. Again, it looks like a lot of red. It's just replacing a small amount of black, and basically our current ordinance says that we can enter into contracts to enforce the parking. This beeps up that language, reiterates that we are exercising control of the parking contractor. We do have some supervision, we have training requirements, background requirements. So we've already authorized ourselves to do this, we're just reinforcing that here. Same for item B, clarifying that only the city establishes these rules, what's the violation, what the fine is, what the penalty is. These are not things the contractor has a right to decide or have input on. Those come from us to them. I thought item BA was an interesting addition. We've never been in this situation. I don't think they've ever even attempted or would ever attempt a custodial arrest, but just for everyone's knowledge, our current parking contractors do not perform custodial arrests, and this will clarify that they are not able to. On page 5, item D1 and 2 just describes the background checks and the training program. We already have language in here that says the city will require them to be trained, and Andrew signs off on it. This just more specifically says what they're going to do. And then for item F, at kind of the third of the way down, this is the important piece here. Parking contractor shall not be entitled to any revenues generated by parking fines, citations, boot fees, etc. This answers the question of the commingling of funds. So going forward, there will be no question that the parking contractor gets any more or less money for themselves depending on how much revenue. No matter how much revenue they make, we get it all. So there's no financial incentive for them to chase more tickets just for creating revenue. The remaining amendments down on the bottom there, those are not new concepts. It just again stresses that similarly as in the parking citations for paid parking areas, the city makes the rules. Parking contractor does not make the rules. Any fee, violation, penalty associated with paid parking comes from us to them, and these guys are also authorized to enforce our paid parking as well as our parking. So those are our proposed ordinance changes related to parking enforcement and paid parking. You guys have any questions about that? Procedurally, we're asking for first reading on this tonight, and that'll give us the go-ahead to, and we've already had some conversations, to reach out to the parking contractor and tell them that simultaneous with second reading next month, we want to have a new contract negotiated for you guys to review. That may happen in an executive session next month. We're not quite sure there, but next month you'll see this ordinance and a new contract at the same time.
Aaron, I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
The areas where the Director of Public Safety is the write-off on the employees and the hiring, the training, in his absence, who takes that if he's gone and you need to take actions on employees?
Andrew, how's your department structure?
Yeah, typically you would follow your standard chain of command, so
Okay.
Major Ortiz will be the director of
Any other questions on that one? All right. You're breezing through it. Next up is the termination of the reserved residential parking sign program. I'm gonna take credit and blame for the poor wording of that title there. I just wanna announce that this program was halted back in 2024 when DOT approved our paid parking extension plan. One of the conditions of us extending our paid parking was that we end the practice of granting exclusive use of the right-of-way to Folly Beach residents. Previously, we'd been offering folks signs to protect parking in front of their house if they had no parking on site. So we stopped issuing these a year ago. Bad wording on the title here, I apologize. But what happened is we stopped the program, but we did not amend our ordinances, so it still exists on the books. We just can't use it anymore. Very importantly, in writing from the DOT, anyone who was approved prior to December 31st, 2023 is still on the list, and they can keep their signs until the house is sold and new owners take over. So no one who is currently approved will lose their signs. I think Wes emailed you guys earlier the list. We have about 62 parking spaces allocated to about 32 or 33 properties. Those are the only folks who will ever get those official signs from the city. And as those properties are sold, the signs will go away over time, and eventually we will have none. Any questions on that? And next up, related to parking, is we have, this is a request to you guys to give us permission to start implementing the 2024 paid parking plan that was approved by DOT. I guess the most important part of this presentation for the public, who may be watching at home, is page 12. This is the map. When we originally applied in 2020 for more paid parking, we had proposed a much more aggressive expansion of paid parking, all the way basically down the front beach. The DOT came back and said, no, you must maintain a certain ratio, specifically of prime spots, which they defined as the oceanfront street. And then they put those conditions on us, so it walked it all the way back to expanding the paid parking only on East Arctic from 2nd to 5th. So the only new paid parking spaces approved by the DOT and hopefully approved by you guys for eventual implementation are East Arctic from 2nd to 5th, and that's about 80 spaces. And just for the record and for the public, I just want to remind everyone that with those 80 spaces, in the prime areas as defined by DOT, which is the beachfront streets, we'll have 317 paid spaces and 747 free spaces. So 1/3 of the prime parking, which is the maximum allowable, will be paid. And then island-wide, we're going to end up with 317 paid parking spaces versus an additional 2,259 free spaces if you just go over a block or 2 blocks. The entire island, other than the current paid parking lots on the front beach and this strip on East Arctic, is free parking. The city is committed to offering free parking as widely as possible, and this is the only expansion that is approved. So if you guys give us the go-ahead, we'll start researching shoulder improvement, signage needs, pay box needs, that sort of thing, and come back to you guys with firm implementation.
Is there any change, Aaron, to the parking on both sides, for example, of West Ashley? Or are they gonna alternate blocks going down?
No, sir. This, West Ashley was wrapped up into the paid parking approval. So West Ashley is counted as free, well, West Ashley is, both sides of West Ashley are counted as free parking spaces as part of this analysis. If we lose one side of that street, then we would have to reduce this.
So I asked you this question earlier this week, and I had a citizen say to me, well, why did we change our parking plan then if we had to give up our residential parking free pass and we had to give up our reserved parking for houses? DOT was gonna make us give those things up regardless if we added these 3 blocks or did not add these 3 blocks.
That is correct. During the approval process, which was happening between 2020 and 2024, in the immediate aftermath of COVID and the eventual fallout, which led to the Charleston Beach Foundation being formed and various parking crusades against the barrier islands, the DOT basically said, during this review, it's come to our attention that you're letting residents park free in the right-of-way. You can't do that. If residents have a right to be free in a paid parking space, then everyone has the right. And that was with our existing paid parking. And they also came back and said, you can't give residents the right-of-way in front of their house because if they have exclusive use, that anyone can. So they've already told us those practices had to end. We were just reminded that in order to get this, we have to do that, and if we didn't want this, we still have to do that.
To be plain, we didn't trade our residents' rights to park for 3 blocks of paid parking on East Arctic.
Correct. We were already told that those residents had no rights, according to the DOT.
Thanks.
There's no resolution on the agenda asking you guys to approve this, but hearing no objections, staff will start working to research any kind of cost of implementation schedules and get that back to you guys ASAP.
Aaron, do we have to go to DOT to move a sign away from a street intersecting to Ashley Avenue where they park so close to that joining street that you can't see to turn when you're coming out? Because you get an F-150 sitting up there within 6 feet of a fire hydrant or the corner, you're toast and you're trying to creep up to see where you're going. And what does it take to move that back a little bit just to improve the visibility and the safety of coming out of a side street?
There should be a sign 20 feet from the intersection, if not, it's state law. So if anyone's parked 6 feet from the intersection, it wouldn't be because our sign's closer. I'm not sure I understand the question.
So 20 feet is the minimum distance?
I think it should be.
I think it's 30 in our ordinance.
It's 30 feet from the, 30 feet, Andrew said.
But it's from the pinnacle, right? So it could be deceiving, yeah.
Yes, 15 feet from the edge.
Yeah.
But if you ever spot a vehicle parked 5, 6 feet from the intersection, that's a ticketable offense, like, it's illegal to
But
park that close.
if you need a sign, all you gotta do is talk to Eric, he'll take care of that.
Well, we've got a couple of streets, you know, that adjoin Ashley East and West, that there's actually been tickets that have been written for somebody rolling a stop sign, but in fact, they stopped, can't see because there's a big car parked there. They creep out till they're clear and they go, and they get pulled over for rolling a stop sign.
Yeah, so, and I'm just wanting clarification, you say move an existing sign, are there any existing signs that are too close to the right of way, or is it install a
I
new sign?
haven't pasted off, but
Okay.
I can just tell you that the circumstance is such that wherever it is, it doesn't afford the view for safety to pull out.
All right.
Without rolling past the stop sign to get a view both sides.
All right, if you send me those locations, I'll get them to Eric and he can go.
Okay, great.
Check them.
Yeah. Thank you.
And one more parking related. Wes, do you happen to have the diagram available? The
Here you go.
plat?
Oh,
For just to put on the screen for everyone to see?
I don't know if he's got one for the screen. Should.
So while Wes is looking that up, the owners of the tennis courts at Center Arctic are working with a third party to improve that lot and possibly install a private parking lot on that lot. But regardless of their proposed use, they are now requesting access to their lot with a driveway. You know, that the lot's walled off, they don't have any access on Arctic or Center. Our ordinance prohibits new driveways on Center Street, so they want to apply to the DOT to get a driveway on Arctic Avenue. When they submitted that to the DOT flagged it and said, we can't proceed on this application until the city signs off on losing 2 paid parking spaces, because there's 2 paid parking spaces affected by the proposed driveway location. And we'll see that in just a minute. I originally thought it was the paid parking spaces that are golf cart spots. It's not, it's actual 2 real spaces, and you guys have the drawing. We'll get it up on the screen in a second. They're kind of in the middle of the lot, so essentially, we're in a situation where we can't deny these folks the right to access their property. They're applying to the DOT to get a driveway. They've worked with Eric and the DOT to reduce the width of the driveway. It was originally gonna take away 3 spaces, but they gave them this 22-foot wide driveway with a slightly larger apron, and got it down to only taking out 2 spaces. And the DOT needs us to say, yes, the city is okay with that. Before staff can say the city's okay with that, we need to talk to you guys about it. And that's it. We do believe that the intended use of the lot is a paid parking lot. We know that lot has been abandoned, well, not abandoned, underused, not used as a tennis court.
Abandoned.
Possibly an area.
Let's say it this way, Aaron, got lots of mess. This will clean up an eyesore on Center Arctic.
Do they plan to pull up the tennis court and put gravel, or are they gonna pave it with pervious, or
Jim,
any plans?
we haven't gotten that far.
They ain't got
right?
that far yet? Okay.
Yeah, we don't have the actual plan yet, only the size of the, we asked for this, which puts the parking spots in there, because we have all those requirements for, aisle sizes and parking spot sizes, but they haven't submitted a permit yet.
Okay.
They approached us about a parking lot, and the original request was to move some trees. We asked, why do you want to move the trees? It's to install a parking lot. So we worked through what the required buffers would be, the requirements for moving the trees. And then the next step was give us a real site plan that you can use to go to the DOT. There is a 50% lot coverage limit in this district. So depending on what the lot coverage is now, if they take up, let's just, I'm making numbers up. If it's at 80% lot coverage and they take up 30% of the tennis courts, or all of the tennis courts, only 50% lot coverage can come back. So,
There really ain't any tennis courts left
yeah,
there.
The whole lot can be gravel.
yeah, sir.
I mean, he'll be able to use the full lot for
Yeah.
parking.
Mhm.
But my concern is, right now, it's an old tennis court with weeds and all. If they just keep the same surface, then you're gonna open up to see with the
Right.
trees going down, to see the ugly
Right.
tennis courts.
Yeah, we don't know what it's gonna do.
Okay.
But that's a good point. If whatever lot coverage he has now, I just want everyone to understand, if he's got 80% and he wants to change that tennis court to concrete, he can, because he's not increasing his lot coverage.
Gotcha.
So he could replace all the pervious material with, impervious material with impervious material as is.
Correct.
So, any thoughts on that?
I don't think we can stop. I don't see how DOT can say you can't get a driveway to that lot, so.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, if we didn't have paid parking spaces in the right of way right there, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Do we have to have an in-kind replacement for those 2 paid spots? Do we
That-
extend it down on Fifth or whatever?
I mean, that'd be up to you
2
guys,
more
but
spots?
if we move forward with implementation, two of them will be replaced further down the street, for sure. So those are all our parking updates for the work session.
It might extend, I haven't measured this. It might extend the golf cart parking spaces there from that edge of that driveway back to Center Street,
Right.
you know, because there's only like 2 spaces there now, so it might be, ended up being 3 or 4. I'd have to go out there, we'd have to go out there and measure it off, but.
And we'll work with the contractor, if that, like the mayor says, if that leftover space no longer functions as it does today, we can totally look at reconfiguring it for more golf cart space. But, that is incoming, and after many, many years, there's a possible incoming development of that lot on Center Street, which in itself is noteworthy, I think.
Just getting it cleaned up is,
Yeah, I think some people want that to be the pickleball court.
It's not too late to buy it. That's all I have.
well, you can't buy it
Oh,
at
yeah.
this point in time because of their HOA.
That's right.
They have to have 100% agreements. They got one holdout.
Really?
They could have sold it 4 or 5 times, but that one person wouldn't sign.
So we'll,
Okay, you through talking?
I am, and we have no safety action presentation, so see you guys in a few minutes. But we will get that up on the internet ASAP, and we'll advertise it on Facebook when we do. I think it's got some really good ideas, and also just for anyone listening, Pease Island, Bowens Island is in there as a recommendation too, for future planning, so that's a good inclusion. But check it out and let us know what you think. Well,
When the report comes out, that'll be in? Okay, we haven't got it yet.
I didn't get email this out yet. I think we might have.